All right. I'll have you introduce yourself. And yeah, we'll go from there.
All right, great.
Okay, I'm ready when you're ready. So
All right. Do you want to just start talking or
Sure.
okay? Hi everyone, and welcome to the At the Heart podcast, a film analysis podcast dedicated to diving into the heart of our favorite films. Today with me, I have my friend Peri. Peri, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yes. Hi, yes. Thank you for having me today. I am a singer, songwriter, actor, and screenwriter, and I'm very grateful to be here.
We're so happy to have you, and especially with this being our first episode and coming out on Valentine's Day. As soon as you told me that one of your childhood favorite movies was Valentine's Day, I knew exactly what we had to talk about. So thank you so much for bringing in this film. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the film?
Yeah. So the film is kind of like a parody off of most romantic comedies. I love the cast is like every A-lister in 2010. And the cast is, my favorite is Taylor Swift and Taylor Lautner. Like, what a duo. But it just like makes me think of my childhood and the decade that we were in. It was just like such an incredible time for films. And that same director also did Mother's Day and New Year's Eve, right, as well. And those are also two of my favorite films.
Yeah, he did New Year's Eve. He did Overboard with Goldie Hawn in the 80s.
I love that film too. I didn't realize that.
And also the Princess Diaries movies, both movies.
Yes.
Which are childhood classics.
Yes.
So I was really happy when you brought this in. I had never seen it before, so this was the first time I've seen it. But
you had never seen Valentine's Day before?
I'd never seen Valentine's Day.
Have you seen New Year's Eve or Mother's Day?
No.
Oh, well, now you have a list to go and watch.
I know. I just heard things about it, and I was like, okay, well, I'll have to watch it one Valentine's Day. And apparently it's this year. It's 2025, and I'm going to watch it. So it was really interesting to see it for the first time, and it was a really fun watch.
It was a great film. And honestly, fun fact, in 2010 when it came out, I was in 6th grade. And it was the first time that my parents let me go out with my friends and go to the movies ourselves.
Really?
And that film was definitely not like PG.
No.
And I just remember leaving and being like, we cannot tell our parents anything about what we just saw, and just say that thank you for letting us go out on our own. But so for like a couple of months, I like didn't tell my mom what we saw. And then I told her, and she was like, oh, I don't really care because I'm the youngest of 3. And she was like, it was over her head anyways.
Oh my gosh. I mean, especially with Anne Hathaway's job in that was an interesting add-on. I've never seen a sex phone worker portrayed in media. And I know that there's a lot of different tropes that are portrayed throughout this film. Why do you think that one was added?
I think that's a good question. Honestly, as a writer, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what goes through other writers' heads, because I feel like sometimes we just think about things and it doesn't really go through our heads. We're just like, throw it in there. It'll work. And if it sticks, it sticks. But I think that character definitely had a big contribution to the film. Just the fact that like we went that direction. I feel like some of them were more like very fairy tale like, relationships. And then that relationship was also, I just felt like a little bit more realistic on like today's day and age, that like people don't have, the traditional jobs that everybody thinks that they have.
Definitely.
And they kind of live like these secret lives. And that actually makes me think of my feature that I'm writing about, the secret lives that people have. And I feel like that definitely is part of what I feel like her role was. And it was to show off that like secret lifestyle that she had, that we saw half of what it was like when she wasn't on the phone, and then what it was like when she was on the phone. Yeah.
Well, we'll get back to Valentine's Day in a second, but let's talk a little bit more about that. And was there any creative inspiration or any ties between this feature that you're writing and this? You mentioned the secret lives.
Yeah. So that definitely makes me think. So the film that I have been writing for the past 3 years, which actually I'm super excited that I casted you in the reading.
I'm so excited.
That's at the end of February. We're doing our first developmental reading, and we have an incredible cast. And so I'm super excited about that. I would say the biggest part of that, it's like an honor to have people reading my work. So that's really exciting. But one of the things about, the secret life. So part of the film, I would love to tell you about that love story too in there. Because of course you have to have a good love story in a comedy as well. So in the film, it's called Born in the Metaverse, and it's basically a coming of age film about a young singer-songwriter, all the obstacles of the industry, as well as the metaverse in this virtual world that most people are living in today, right? And most of the characters, the leads we find, live these secret lives within the metaverse. And they're not showing who they really are in the real world, similar to Anne Hathaway and how she is this sex worker over the phone. And then she looks like a normal, average. And by all means, I am all for women and work, like you do your thing, girl. But I think that she totally like wanted to hide that part of her when she was, out and about, because she didn't make it like it was part of her. But then when she was doing her work, she was like, this is how I make a living, and I'm like, good for you, girl. But the thing is that I wish that she could have been able to do that in the real world too. Like she shouldn't have had to hide that, especially if she was passionate about it. So that really just makes me think a lot about how in my film, a lot of these singer-songwriters and actors and just people in general try to be somebody that they're not in this virtual world because they think that they can be whoever they want to be.
Yeah.
Whereas in the real world, they can too, but you have to believe that you can, and it's easier to pretend to be somebody else than it is to really be yourself. And I really hope that my film, brings awareness on especially what's happening in the world with cyber safety and stuff. Yeah. Like so many people are not who they really say they are on the internet, and that is terrifying. So there's grooming involved and all these things that are happening today in the cyber world. But then there's this beautiful love story about a young girl in New York City and a young guy who just started college as a freshman in California who wants to be a lawyer. And you have this young singer-songwriter who has just been screwed over by her management and really needs help getting out. And they basically fall in love in this virtual world, and he finds out that she's not really who she is, and she has a choice either to be honest with him and like move forward, or not tell him, and he already knows. So he would have basically like disappeared. But the goal is that hopefully you'll have to wait and see, but the goal is that hopefully that does happen, of course. But there's a lot that comes in the way of it, and a lot of, self-love and self-care. And that's another thing that makes me think of Valentine's Day, because I personally am in my first long-term relationship for about 2 years now. And for the longest time, I had Valentine's Days with my girlfriends, Galentine's Day. And I feel like Valentine's Day isn't about just loving who you're with. It's also loving yourself. And I'm 27 years old. So for 25 Valentine's Day, they were about me and loving me on Valentine's Day. And I still will always do that as well as love my person as well. But I think that it's important that Valentine's Day isn't just for couples, it's also for yourself and loving who you are.
Definitely. And I think that there's a lot of different representations of love
100%.
In this film. One of my personal favorite moments is when Julia Roberts comes home and we find out that the man is actually her son, because I feel like that bond is so important, and we don't know what happened to his mom the whole time through the film.
Right.
We just know that something is causing her not to be there.
Right. And
that he's missing that. And for Valentine's Day, she comes home and surprises him. So I know that I love that part.
Yeah, no, that part is beautiful for sure. And I feel like and then that's like this like very sentimental moment. And I feel like it's kind of that full circle moment. But then you have like the Taylor Swift love that's like that high school, funny, comedy that you're just like, oh my God, I remember those days. I wish that I had that, when I was in high school and things like that. Like I always wanted that, that's definitely what we thought that was like a cute high school love, and it's just funny looking back because I'm like, it was Taylor Swift. Like that's just like so random in 2010 if you think about it. Yeah. But at the same time, like she's one of the biggest superstars today. So I'm not that surprised, but it is interesting. Like going back to it, I honestly forgot that it was Taylor Lautner. I was like, who was the really cute guy that she was with in that film? And then when I was looking last night, I was like, oh my God, it was Taylor Lautner. How did I forget that? Like I loved him.
No, definitely. And I think that going a little bit outside of Valentine's Day, but the two times I've seen Taylor Swift on screen are Valentine's Day and New Girl. And I feel like both times that she's been on screen, that I've seen at least, it's always in this like romantic but really, really fun,
like cheesy.
Scene.
Yes,
Cheesy.
very cheesy.
So cheesy and
Yeah.
so fun. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the reasons why this movie works.
Yes.
Is that they comment a lot on all of the different Valentine's Day tropes
Yes.
and romantic comedy tropes. And it's a little bit satire too, where there some of the lines I'm like, that's so on the nose.
I know.
What other trope was like your favorite? I know that you mentioned
So I'm blanking on, so Jessica Alba, and was it with Justin Timberlake or was it
no,
'Cause
Justin
they're-
Timberlake's not in this one. I think it was an Ashton Kutcher.
Ashton Kutcher? Yes, it was. Yes, because I'm thinking, yeah, Justin Timberlake and Jessica
Is he in New Year's Eve?
Biel. Yes, he is. Yes.
gosh.
Yes.
Well, I'll have to add that to my holiday
Yes.
movie list.
Well, yes, it was Ashton Kutcher and Jessica Biel, right?
Okay. I think that Jessica Biel's in this one too. But
Oh, I could be so
well,
wrong.
Jessica Alba is. I think Jessica Alba is
In New Year's Eve?
no in
Valentine's
his fiance
Day.
in Valentine's.
Oh, yes,
Day.
yes, yes, you're right.
And then Jessica Biel is the single individual that throws her like I hate Valentine's
Yes.
Day LA party in the
Yes.
same restaurant as the Indian wedding.
Yes.
Am I getting those?
Yes.
Those
No,
Jessica
yes,
last
you're
names
right. Yes, yes. The Jessicas.
The Jessicas. It's one of the other things I find so fascinating about this movie is I don't remember any of the character names, but I don't know if that's
Honestly,
necessarily
kind of
the
too.
point because
Yeah.
there's so many storylines that I'm more than like I'm someone that I love referring to characters by their character name if at all
Yeah.
possible, but I feel like the way that this film is built, it almost just works
Yeah.
to refer to all of the actors and actresses
Yeah.
as their actor or actress name.
Right. And I feel like that was kind of the point because then that's why I feel like they had such a stacked cast.
Yeah.
Like they were like, yes, we'll have names like in the film, but people will know them as who they really are in real life. But you had a great point when we were talking about this yesterday, but the flower shop in the middle.
Yes.
I loved that point. But yeah, like how everybody walks through that flower shop
Yeah.
at some point in their lives throughout the film. And it's basically this center place that they all, cross paths in, whether or not they actually meet each other face to face. And I thought that it was such a really amazing, if you think about it, like just I don't even know how to explain it, but it was just an amazing that it was just a small little flower shop, but it meant so much in the entire film because
Yeah.
every single character walked through it at some point in their life. And it was a big, it was something big that happened, each time that they walked through it.
Yeah. Going back a little bit for our listeners, yesterday we were talking about coming in today, and I had mentioned that kind of the center of the story revolves around this flower shop, and that most film we're talking about at the heart and the fact that films have a heart
Yep.
or something at the center. And one of those centers is this flower shop where everyone's connected to it in some way. It's what really ties the film together. Ashton Kutcher works there. He finds out that McDreamy has a wife and a girlfriend inside the flower shop.
Right. Because they're all sending flowers through
They're all
there.
sending flowers through Valentine's Day because the thing to do for Valentine's Day is flowers. So I thought that in such an ensemble film where so many of the characters, it seems, don't connect.
Yeah. But they
There
do.
really are connections between all of them. And it's really how small a world it is.
Yeah.
And this main driver, this center, is this flower shop.
Right.
Did I explain that pretty
No, that was
closely
perfect.
to
No,
what I
that
said
was
yesterday?
perfect.
But just kind of providing a little bit of context for what
Yeah.
you were saying, and one of the reasons why I thought that the film actually did end up working
Yeah.
is they actually did have a center. It wasn't an apparent center necessarily, but you kind of start and end with the flowers.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I also think too, there's something about like this writer, I'm blanking on their name, but I feel like the way that there's just so much different story, there's multiple different stories happening, like you're saying, but they don't really coincide with one another, but then they all come through this flower shop and it makes sense.
Yeah.
As somebody who's like so ADHD, I love that it's very quickly to another story. And I feel like that's why I love the New Year's Eve as well and Mother's Day, the type of writing, like it's it's definitely on to the next one. You know, as soon as you get to like, it's fading off to the next one. And then they come back and it's just nice that I feel like it's like always fresh.
Yeah.
You know, it's not one story the whole time. It's like 5 or 6 things happening and then they all come together at the end. And as somebody who just likes to be excited and likes to, you know, not really know what's coming next, I also really enjoyed that in the film. And
I thought that it was a really interesting technique that I haven't seen in a ton of film.
Yeah.
To me, it almost reminded me of even a sketch show. I started calling it a sketch film because you kind of have these scenes that seem disconnected, but they're all comedic moments for the most part. There's scenes that definitely aren't comedic and they have a little bit more heart or depth to them. But you kind of move on from one scene to the next scene, to the flower truck getting rear-ended, to sitting at lunch with someone and talking about your career being possibly over. So I thought it was really interesting that they took that approach to writing, because I see that more in like a Saturday Night Live, where it's actually a sketch comedy show and they don't connect in the end.
Right.
But because it's a film, they do
all
actually
connect.
have a connection. And you just kind of have to put the pieces together to figure out like which character knows who, which leads back to the flower shop, like we were just saying. One of the other through lines that I thought was really interesting was the friends to lovers trope, because we kind of start with a lot of things that kind of relate to that trope, where Ashton Kutcher and Jennifer Garner are the couple for that. And you kind of end with their kiss, but you start with him being with someone else and her being with someone else.
Right.
Which is very, at least I think, characteristic of that trope.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that. Yeah.
Did that interest you at all? Was there anything?
I mean, that one, like, their story was interesting to me, like, for sure. And I felt like, but that one I kind of felt like I saw coming.
Oh, totally.
You know, because that was like the friendship, and it's like the traditional romance, you know, comedy where they're best friends and then they're with 2 other people and then they end up falling in love with each other and leaving those 2 that weren't good to them anyways, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So I definitely, but I feel like that kind of story was a little bit predictable.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would say that was my favorite, but I did really enjoy that because I feel like that's a classic, and I do love stories like that because I do think that that actually does happen and maybe should happen more often than it does without cheating or anything involved. You know, like that is something you cut off long before, you know, before you actually ever would go towards something like that. But I do think that it also just shows like a lot of how relationships start. Yeah. And it's realistic, you know, that a lot of people say they marry their best friend, and sometimes you meet the person first, and that you just fall in love and then they become your best friend, or they're your best friend and then you fall in love. But
yeah, definitely. We mentioned a little bit earlier that the director was Gary Marshall.
Yes.
Do we want to go into that a little bit? We had kind of talked about some of his other films: Overboard, Princess Diaries 1 and 2, New Year's Eve. Was there anything about this film in the directing style that really stuck out to you, that you appreciated as an actor or as a writer?
Yeah, I would say so. One thing that I did a little bit of research on him just because I was like, I want to know what I'm talking about today, you know. And I honestly, as a writer, I feel like sometimes you learn a lot about directors, but at the same time, I'm so focused on the writing always that I don't really focus on who directs, you know, as well. And I should, because the director is so extremely important. But one thing that I discovered about him specifically was there's a way about it that he, with his actors on screen, with how he directs and how he also like has basically like, it seemed like a lot of the actors that had worked with him in the past said that he was very, like, he allowed you to do your own stuff too. Yeah. So he had very specific instructions, but then he basically was like, add your spin to it, which I think is very unique because a lot of directors, you know, are either this is exactly how I want it, please do it exactly the way, or some are like, please add your spin to it. And I thought that that was probably part of what makes the films so relatable and comedic, because they are probably real things that are happening authentically on screen. Yeah. And it's not to say that he's not, you know, a director that is very specific, because he is still very specific, but it just seems like he has these really talented cast that he knows will do the job for him.
Yeah.
And it was just really interesting. And I saw a few reviews, and it was actually like extras that were in his films. And they just said that it was amazing to watch a director like that give so much freedom to the actors. And that to me was like, wow, no wonder these movies are the way that they are and look so natural and real, because they actually, some of these instances they weren't written in the script. They just happened. And these actors just kind of, you know, took it with them. And I thought that that was really amazing and really cool and unique, even though I do know that there's plenty of other directors out there that do that, but not that I've seen, you know,
definitely
like this. And he has so many movies that he's done that are like this. And I think it's incredible. It would be an honor to work with somebody like him one day.
Yeah, totally. I think that it was really interesting to see. I'm blanking. I don't know why I'm so blank. I'm having a hard time transitioning. Is there anything else? Like, there's definitely more I want to talk about, but is there anything that's coming to mind for you right now?
Well, so the one that you brought up about, what is it, McDreamy? Like in yeah. So I'm like, I don't even know his name, and we just know him as McDreamy from Grey's Anatomy. I'm like McDreamy over here. What is his name?
Like the actor's name?
Yeah,
Patrick Dempsey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But the fact that I'm like, you have to have one where the guy, I'm sorry, but like that the guy is not nice to the women,
right,
and that he clearly has multiple women. And I think that that is obviously like a comedic part, but also like crap, you know, like that's horrible that that's happening. But then you see that it, you know, has a silver lining in the end of it. But I think that that is funny. But at the same time, I was like, I feel like that might actually happen maybe too often, that like we're like kind of making fun of it, but at the same time that's comedy, you know, it's off of real life things. But I think that situation though was at least like comedic and relatable, because I'm sure that people, you know, have done that before.
Oh, definitely.
And think that they're never going to get caught or anything. And it's like, dude, you just sent 2 different sets of flowers for Valentine's Day, and we know you're not married or have children. Like, you know, like,
right.
So it's just interesting. And it was like a small town, like that they were in I forgot where they were, but it was like
I know that they were in Los Angeles.
Yes, but it was a small like community within Los Angeles. I felt like everybody lived within. Like,
everyone lived
maybe it was
close.
The same neighborhood. Maybe they were in like the Valley or Hollywood Hills, whatever it was. But they were definitely like within the same realm for living. And I definitely felt like that was really interesting. That like he's sending 2 flowers as if like these 2 women who are both located in the same city that he's in would not cross paths.
Oh, definitely, because I thought when he was going on an airplane or going somewhere that he was actually going to travel to see his wife.
Oh, no. And she still was in Los Angeles.
She was still in Los Angeles. He just drove home. But it was far enough that she believes that he stays in a condo close to the hotel.
Right.
Or the hotel was outside of where they live.
Right.
But I thought that was really interesting. And Jennifer Garner gives a brilliant...
Alba, right?
No,
oh, it's
Garner.
Jennifer Garner.
Jennifer Garner is the one.
Oh yes, with yes.
There's 3.
Yes, the Jennifers.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love you all, Jennifers, but you guys are. I'm dyslexic, and you guys are very confusing.
But the scene when Jennifer Garner, of course, goes into the restaurant and pretends to be the waitress, and basically tells the wife that
I'm also seeing him.
Right.
Yeah.
But pretends to be the waitress and goes on about the stinking pig or
yes. I mean, I don't know, like, God forbid, like, I hope I'm never in a situation like that. Like, good for her for pulling something out of a hat, like, and going down a rabbit hole of a story.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. But honestly, he deserved every minute of it. You know, that, of course, that was going to come into play. But honestly, too, like, as a woman, I'm like, that sucks. And I feel bad for both of those women.
Definitely. It's not a great situation, but she gets free food out of it.
Yeah, and at least it was
and
how
at least she got to kind of get her revenge.
Yeah, I was like, she got her story off her chest.
Definitely. It was probably very fun to do that too.
Yeah.
I mean,
a lot of courage.
Lots of courage. Very ballsy. I love that the maitre d' like let her do that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they were probably like, we need some entertainment tonight anyways. Go for it.
Of course. I mean, I think working in the service industry, I know at least for me, when I did my stint, it was always fun for some drama to come in.
Yeah, you're like, everybody needs a little drama sometimes.
Yeah. What do you think is the most underrated part of this film?
I didn't even think about the flower shop until you brought it to my attention when we were discussing this yesterday. But I really think it's that full circle moment where everybody really just crosses through. And like you said, it's the heart of the film.
Yeah.
And I don't think you really realize that until every single person passes through that flower shop and you realize that was a huge part of who their character is and who they are in this film and why they're there. Right. And I think that it's really nice that you kind of realize that at the end, because you think back and you're like, wait, where has everybody been? And like cross paths, and it's the flower shop. It's very clearly the flower shop. That's where most of the film takes place.
Yeah, definitely. I think that my last question would be, at the heart of it all,
yes,
Valentine's Day is a film that is
about love, real shit, I would say, as well as just, I would say it's just about love and relationships and how not all relationships are as they seem.
Yeah.
I think, as well as a lot of them have really beautiful and really rough moments, and you're probably not in the right relationship if you're not having fun. So that movie, I feel like, really showed me that, a relationship probably should be very fun like that, because even though it is a movie, I do believe that movies take off of somewhat of real stories. They have to think, they have to come up with their ideas somehow. Yeah. And so I definitely do think that like there's a lot of real life things in there that I want to take with me. And I do think that like that really showed me like I could have a very fun life with someone and laugh all the time. And I'm glad that I, know that, because it's important to laugh with your person and, enjoy life. And I definitely think that those characters in that film really seem to have enjoyed life. And I'm glad that they really took that perspective.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find you?
Thank you so much for having me. And I am on all social media as at Periel, and on Instagram at Periel Music. They won't let me change it. I'm trying to change it. I'm just a writer now. But yeah, please definitely check out my film when it comes around. And I recently stopped doing mostly as a ghostwriter for my music, so hopefully you also see a lot of my name on some music soon. But thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. We really enjoyed having you. Maybe you'll come on again soon?
Okay, maybe. I would love to.
Thanks, everyone. Until next time.
Bye.